Welcome to Worth the War. My name is Kimmy. The purpose of Worth the War is preparing people for healthy love and relationship and how to avoid abuse. If you think we can do a better job with love and relationship than we're doing in the modern culture, then you have found the exact right channel. We are building a community on most every social media platform, and you can find those links down below. We would love to have you join and engage with us. We are going to build a community to help people find healthier ways to prepare and to recover from the way that we've approached love and relationship the last few decades. In today's video, we're going to talk about 5 things that were lessons from Bridgerton. 3 of them were pretty great that we learned, and 2 of them were pretty toxic. And out of those, there are things that we can both internally know and help to pass on to the kids that are in our circle so that they can see things in popular culture, maybe just through a little different lens. So I hope that you'll hang around and go through these things. I'd love to hear what you think of them down below. Today's topic is going to follow right along with the idea that culture itself has an opinion of love and relationship that I'm not saying we should totally pull ourselves out of, but we probably need to give some good thought to. So if you haven't heard of the Netflix series Bridgerton, and it's the winter of 2021, you haven't been on social media or watched any entertainment shows, and that's fine. But there are still some good things about Bridgerton that I think we can draw attention to. There's a lot of things about it that were spoken of by everybody. The sex scenes, I would say, if you were going to grade those from 1 to 10, they're way up there. They're close to the 10 mark in terms of family-friendly TV, if you can call that family-friendly. So you need to know that before we get into the other ideas about love and relationship. It's teaching us a lot more, though, than a lot of people are talking about. We're going to look at just a few of the messages that are good and some of them that are not good, so that if your kids have talked about it or watched it and you haven't had a chance, or maybe you haven't thought about it, you get some other ideas about some things that it can actually teach. And as we've talked about in older videos, which we did one on movies and how they affect us, and I'll put that link down below, it's important for us to be able to use these as object and teaching lessons with our children and with the people that actually care what we think about love and relationship, and they may actually want to listen to us in this setting. So let's get into a few of the things that Bridgerton did come across that were actually pretty important for us as a culture. One of the first things that I thought was actually a really good lesson from this series, Bridgerton, was the primacy of family and the role of teaching their children about relationships, love, and sex. We had 2 very different examples. In Daphne, the romantic lead, she wanted to be led by her mom. Her mom did give her some input. Now, she had lost her father, unfortunately. Her mom did give her some input and encouraged her in kind of, I would say, glossy, surface ways, but she missed the boat when it came to actually talking about the nitty-gritties of relationship and how keeping a relationship healthy also does include intimacy, and she really wanted to know more about that, especially as she was on the eve of her marriage. And her mom just kind of dropped the ball on that. What an important point to make to our kids in the culture, that parents really are the best place to learn these things, and there can be a cost if we don't do a good job of it. I can't tell you how many people I know personally that say their parents just never even talked about the subject. And I don't think you have to go very far to think that maybe peer group really aren't the best place to learn about love and relationship. And yes, this is my cat that keeps popping up. Sorry about that. We learn a really important lesson, and we can also look at the toxicity and the trauma that the lead, and they call him the Duke in the series, is basically learning the opposite. He's learning what abuse is, what narcissistic abuse looks like, what pushing your child away and actually making them feel less than actually does, and the ramifications that trauma has on a child for the long term. This is a pretty important point that's in Bridgerton, and I don't think it should be glossed over. I think we should probably talk a little bit more about that than we do about the sex scenes. The second thing I think was pretty cool about this Bridgerton series was that it's set in the Regency period. So yes, there are huge chasms between people of different race to people of different classes, but they use that in really kind of in a shocking and attention-grabbing way to show that love doesn't really color within the lines. When there are false lines, and by false I mean we know that healthy love is built on compatibility and things that pull us together that actually can help us go the long distance in love and relationship. But throughout human history, we've always drawn these false lines. Race, class, education level, some of these things, they're not really boundaries, and you can definitely love people who exist on the other side of these spectrums. This is kind of a neat way to show that. They have the queen be a woman of color, and the duke and the primary leads are of different races. And so when you really kind of look at that, you go, that is a beautiful way of showing that love in and of itself will not respect created or false boundaries. Another theme I thought was really kind of cool that they put in Bridgerton was the younger sister of Daphne, Eloise. She was an independent woman in a time, obviously in this setting, which is what this kind of makes this shine a little bit, is that you wouldn't expect to see this. It's kind of like some of the things that we used to see in Jane Austen's books, where women were expected to marry. It was a requirement. Often it was survival for them. But I'm sure many of those women felt just like this younger sister who really wanted to pursue something other than marriage and family, and that wasn't her first priority. Now, there's obviously complications with that we can't take out, but when it comes to the lessons that we can kind of learn about love and relationship in Bridgerton, we really would be remiss not to consider the fact that a woman and a man's independence and desire not to be connected in relationship is not a bad thing, and we need to have a little bit more respect and a little bit more room for people who choose that. So we've talked about a few of the themes that are pretty great about Bridgerton, but we're going to touch on a couple that are pretty uncomfortable, and it's important that we ourselves notice them and that we make sure if we have any little ones in our life that we help them to see them as well. And like I said before, the sex scenes in here I say are 8 out of 10 in terms of spicy, so you need to know that as well. When it comes to the fact that men also deserve consent, they need to be able to give consent. There was a scene, because of his past trauma, he doesn't want to procreate, so he's making a decision within their intimacy level to not procreate. He comes home drunk, and his wife makes sure that they consummate the intimate act. That did not allow room for his consent. Sometimes in these kind of movies, people try to glamorize it. He was through trauma, that's why he did that. So this was great that she was kind of calling him on it, or, oh, she didn't really understand. And I just think it's important for us to point out, we should never, ever glorify both partners not giving one another consent. Consent should flow. We did a video on it a little farther back, I'll link it below, but consent is a lifestyle. It's a choice, it's a practice. And when you're in the midst of intimacy, consent needs to roll as you go. Just because you wanted something a couple hours ago or 2 weeks ago has no bearing on what you want today, and that's for both partners. So this is a very dangerous precedent to set, no matter what kind of glorification that you try to put around it. That is one thing that I think we all should step back and say, that part should have been, if it did happen, which sometimes these things will happen in history, I'm not saying we don't cover them, but I think it should probably have deserved more focus, and it should have been clearer. There was absolutely nothing okay about him not giving consent in that moment of intimacy. So the last lesson that Bridgerton taught, which I think is so important for all of us to really step back and look at when it comes to romantic movies, is that it follows the line of, well, in this case, the woman saving the man from his traumatic past. And he boldly lies to her. So we romanticize the toxicity of lying because of our pain. We romanticize the fact that she literally was led to believe that he didn't want to have a family for one reason. It was completely not the reality of the situation. And as long as we don't really highlight the fact that what's really romantic and what's really great about love is two people who have done the hard work of healing that come together. Once we start to see that, we're going to see that in pretty much all of our movies, this is a theme that we'll see. One of them's going to save the other and everything's going to end up just fine. Truth is, we can't make somebody want to be happy, and we certainly can't make them want to heal. So it's just not a good precedent to set. So that would be probably what I would say the most dangerous piece of the Bridgerton story. But if you're not going to be able to watch that, you pretty much won't be able to watch 90% of movies ever made. So better just to make sure that you're prepared, you prepare your kids for that message so that when they see it, they get it, and they enjoy it as entertainment, but they certainly don't base their hopes for love and relationship on stories like that. So that's it. That's a healthy love and relationship take on the things we can learn and the things that we can leave about Bridgerton. I hope you found it somewhat interesting. I want to do more things that interact with modern culture because honestly, that is where the power is. If we can understand what we're learning from culture, we can learn to not have to hide from it, but how to process it. And that's probably one of our greater goals here at Worth the War. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I know there are tons of other channels that you could be watching. I hope that you will subscribe down below. Join us, press the notification bell. We are building a community. We are going to make a dent, and we are going to help people find healthier ways to love. Hope you have a great rest of your day.